Hey everyone, I hope you're all having a fantastic day so far. Today I'm going to be talking about how you can find new contracts without job surfing. Now there are so many ways in which you can do this, but I want to specify one specific way, which I think has been very unique to me specifically. Now, if I sort of like move on in this presentation, again, I just want to highlight that there are so many different ways in which you can find these different opportunities. But for me personally, I've been able to find opportunities within the current space that I'm working in. So essentially that looks like a job extension, or that looks like moving into a different team or department or whatever it may be. So this has been really, really useful, especially across the 2.5 years that I've been contracting, so to speak. Now, there is definitely significance in terms of maintaining a contract because it means that you have, yes, sustained income, especially if you're in a space that you actually like. And I think that's a really key sort of like point here. If you're in a space that you enjoy and everything else, then of course there are many different ways in which you can sort of like create those different opportunities. Now, again, I want to sort of like allude to the fact of how you can really sort of like create a sense of a no-brainer for people to keep you on board. What do I mean by this? So essentially, I've come up with this thing called the VOA Method, okay? Just for why not come up with a name, a random name. And essentially, the VOA Method focuses on, number one, value. So how do you create or provide value when it comes to contracting? The second thing is offer. How are you offering your expertise or your experience when it comes to moving on again in a different team, different department, or within the current space that you're in? And number three, accept. Of course, you have to accept it, otherwise none of this stuff is going to actually work. So I want to talk about this stuff in a bit more detail to give you some insights in terms of how, again, you can utilize this for yourself. So let's move on to demonstrating value. So essentially, you have to define what value looks like, okay? And value can be defined in many different ways. But for me personally, value looks like essentially what you demonstrate, okay? What you actually deliver on, your experience and your expertise, and your perceived value, okay? So this is both online and offline. So what do I mean by all of this stuff? Now, for those of you who haven't checked out my video previously on your first 30 days, in terms of contracting or working in general, I'll definitely check it out. But I've kind of like highlighted a summary here in terms of what you need to be thinking about. So again, if you want to make sure that you're delivering, you need to be able to record what it is that you need to deliver. And so there needs to be clear expectations as to what you are bringing to the table and what they expect of you. And so one way you can do this is obviously, number one, any sort of actions, no matter how big or small that you have, you need to track in a Kanban board and or action log on Excel, Google Sheets, or whatever it is that you use. Okay, so tracking this information keeps you accountable to self. You have to create a self-accountability system. And so for yourself, this is what I do, is when I'm delivering against something, I'm timing how quickly I achieve X. Because the quicker I do it and with the highest quality, the more valuable I am as a person. It comes down to speed and quality at the end of the day. The second thing is I want to have proactive meetings. So these proactive meetings are initially going to be meetings set with your hiring manager or the person you're reporting to, so to speak, or working with. It could be the team that you're collaborating with in the matrix. So that could be the direct core team and or other area teams that you're working with. It could also be stakeholders and or customers. Okay, so if you're within that change management space, remember CPIG, customers, providers, influence, and governors. These are crucial in terms of identifying how you can operate with these different types of people. You also want to make sure that you develop a cadence over time. Okay, whether it's you implementing this or not, have a weekly, bi-weekly, or monthly sessions with these individuals to get updates in progress or reporting or sense of accountability or risk management or budget management, whatever it may be, whatever it is that you're doing. So you're just keeping people on the pen. You're making sure that the T's are crossed and the I's are dotted, so to speak. You also want to lead with experience and expertise. People need to feel that you are the go-to person in that sense when it comes to a consultative arrangement, so to speak. And what do I mean by this? When you're having your initial meeting with the individuals within your workspace, okay, within this contract, you are going to talk about your experiences, okay? you are going to talk about their experiences. You're also going to understand what their current situation is. And you're also going to try to understand, what their future desire looks like, okay? So that you can try to close that gap. And in that gap, this is where you can refer to your program, project, change, business, analyst sort of like methodologies, your agile methodologies, and imprint and implant this stuff, okay? It's also very important to make sure that you read the company policies and or terms and specifications, because most people don't like reading. The reality is most people do not like reading. And so I say this to say that if you are one step ahead, if you have the knowledge and expertise, as well as the know-how in terms of the background strategy and what's been done before in the past, then you are 10 times ahead of many people, because most people don't like to read. And if they do read, they've read it ages ago, okay? Or they've read bits of it, and these days you've got tools like AI that can help you summarize information very, very quickly, extensions like GLASP, etc., etc. You also want to make sure that you highlight, again, any appropriate boundaries, okay, and expectations like I highlighted before. But with these boundaries, make it clear when you start, make it clear when you finish, make it clear when you have lunch. It's also good practice to make sure that you have 5 or 10 minutes left before you finish any sort of meeting. So let's say, for example, you have a meeting at 10, finish at 10:50. If it's supposed to be for an hour, make it 15 minutes. If it's a half an hour meeting, make it 25 minutes instead. So it gives you enough time to just catch your breath, okay? And finally, you want to maintain some level of authentic brand offline and online. And what I mean by this is you need to be able to allow people to see your character, okay, in the right way. And if people are able to see your character in the right way, this really means that they're able to connect with you better, okay? It's all about connection at the end of the day. You need to be able to connect with people on a level. And if you can connect with people on a level, people are more trusting of you. And so we want to develop this level of trust. And so the way you do this is, again, in the initial sort of like sessions that you have with people, you need to be able to, again, learn about them and be invested in them, utilizing active and deep listening. And this is portrayed based on eye contact, body language, and really just allowing them to just talk. Sometimes you could do no talking and people feel like you've really listened to them and you've had a great conversation when it's them doing all the talking. I did this the other day. And so you have to be able to do that. You also need to be able to feed back what you've heard and what you've learned, and provide any sort of motivation and encouragement, and or if it's unsolicited advice, do that as well, so to speak, to a degree, obviously. But you have to have a level of empathy for the individual in terms of recognizing them as human. It's the human divine connection that's really important. And so value is defined by that brand when it comes to offline. Also, you want to make sure that you are dressed a certain way, okay? I'm not always wearing shirts or anything like that. I like to dress comfortably when it comes to contracting. But when you are meeting people in person, let's say you have to go into London or you need to go to Leeds or wherever it may be, you need to look on point. I'm sorry, you just need to look on point. People need to feel your presence. Wear that cologne. Make sure your hair is trim. Your beard is, a certain way, or your hair is down, twisted a certain way, or cut a certain way, or up a certain way for the ladies. You maintain a professionalism when it comes to the one-to-one. But offline, yeah, it's a bit different because you're in your own home environment. When it comes to online, make sure that, again, your social media, such as your LinkedIn specifically, is on point. I don't need to go through all of it. You can check out my LinkedIn for ideas when it comes to that stuff. Clean picture, clean header, clean headline, making sure you got your experience outlined clearly. You're reposting or posting stuff that's empowering, educational, entertaining, but not folly. So this is what I mean by making sure that your online and offline presence is on point. So hopefully that gives you an idea of what value looks like specifically, okay? So now let's move on. Let's move on to ask and offer. So this is the offer bit of VOA. Now, when it comes to the end of your contract, let's say, for example, you got a 6-month contract, you got, 1.5 months left, you're 4.5 months in, you need to start thinking about, contacting people, etc., etc. Now, you should have a list of contacts. I'm not perfect with this. I'm not going to pretend like I'm some amazing person who keeps everything up to date. And no, I'm not going to lie. I've got friends who do that, and they're very good at doing that. But for me, I make sure at least in my inbox, I have all the different opportunities that have been presented to me over the months, even though I've been contracting, unread, and I'm ready to respond if I haven't responded already, okay? I'm also making sure that I'm just checking things here and there, just trying to understand the market, and that's through talking to agents and everything else. But sometimes I can't be bothered. I'll be honest with you, I cannot be bothered. And so this is where this came from. This is where this offer came from. So I would approach the hiring manager, so the person who was responsible for my recruitment, and, in a humble and firm approach and polite approach, I'd simply say to them, let's call her Janet. Hey, Janet, I hope all is well. As you know, my contract has come into an end in the next month and a half, and I just wanted to know if there was a possibility of an extension. I understand that I've been able to deliver X value, blah, 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 blah. And I believe I can provide more value in these areas. So you're basically providing evidence for what you've done, and you're highlighting where you can provide more opportunity. And this has to be genuine. And sometimes you don't even need to say all of that stuff, okay? Sometimes you just need to ask if there's an extension, because sometimes they just like you. That value bit that we did at the beginning, that likability bit, is so important and so key for making sure that this becomes a solid foundation for potentially securing. This is not a guarantee, it's a potential, okay? And so with that in mind, if they say no, they don't, keep on following up. Just say, okay, cool. I just wanted to know if you knew anyone else within the business or organization who require a contract of my expertise, for their specific program or delivery. Simple. So don't just ask the hiring manager, ask other people who you've developed a relationship with, okay? So this could be, colleagues you've worked with, people who've worked with you within the matrix, okay? Neighboring organizations. This could be a whole bunch of stuff. You're connecting with so many different people. And, what I usually do is, nearing the end of my contract, I would say a month or two near to the end, I start connecting with people on LinkedIn. I don't do it straight away. You can do, it's up to you, but I just prefer to do it later on because I don't always lean into the other portfolio stuff that I do, such as coaching, creating, the NED stuff, etc., unless it's really aligned to what I'm doing. So, for example, coaching is naturally quite aligned. I just talk about that in general, but not from a business angle. I'm a practice coach. I talk about the fact that I'm a non-executive director / trustee for the Institute of Leadership. It's all around leadership. All of this stuff is around leadership. So again, it's aligned. So it gives me a bit of oomph. So when they see my profile on LinkedIn, they are impressed. And 9 times out of 10, they want to find other opportunities for me, and or they want help themselves, okay? Because they've seen I've provided value. So this is where you're able to really, really see if you can provide some stuff. Now let's move on to acceptance. Okay, let's move on to acceptance. So like I said before, essentially, you should be seeking new contracting opportunities regardless, okay? And it's important to make sure you have your options open. It doesn't pay to be as risky as me at times. I like to be a bit risky to push the boat, but sometimes I just don't feel like doing it. I'm not saying you should be like that. I'm just saying sometimes I can be in that position. It doesn't mean that I know that I'm going to get something, but I will get sort of like, what's the word? Insights along the journey. People saying, we'd love to keep you on board. We'd love to bring you into our team. We'd love to do X. We'd love to do Y. So again, these are all different ways to boost your sense of confidence, so to speak, to encourage you to actually ask for these extensions or these opportunities elsewhere outside of the business. It doesn't have to be the same thing. It could be in a different capacity. And will rate change? Well, here's my thing on this. If it means that you're doing more, okay, from an accountability standpoint or a leadership standpoint, then definitely yes. But if it's really a sidestep or continuation, unless there is a justified reason as to why you require more money, then just leave it. It just makes the paperwork so much easier. And of course, this may be specific within public sector organizations, but I've spoken to friends who have done this within the private sector as well, within the tech space. So again, there are all of these nuances, but just bear all of this stuff in mind if this is something that you're going to consider. So again, be prepared to, again, Read different materials. If they say, yes, we want to take you on board, but not in our team, in someone else's team. And you need to understand different stuff. So be prepared to do that. Be prepared to, again, talk about what you've done within the organization, how long you've been there for, what you delivered on, and what was the result in that, okay? And also talk about what you're prepared to do. What are you prepared to do moving forward? And this is where your expertise is really exercised. You're prepared to run a program management team, or you're prepared to, run some sort of transformation within the business. You're prepared to do some business analysis or whatever it may be. What are you prepared to do? Give them that confidence that you are the right person, even if you're thinking, oh, damn, I ain't done that in a while, but you've done it. You've probably done it in some capacity. It's probably transferable in some way, shape, and form. So think about all of this stuff, okay? This is all really important stuff to consider. So hopefully that's given you some ideas. So here are some key takeaways that, I'd like you to think about. So the first thing is you need to be able to demonstrate value. Really, really important. And I want to be specific with what value is. Value is based on delivery, experience and expertise, and perception. It's that simple. How people see you is how they value, whether you like that or not. So you need to get with the program. The second thing is, before I even move on to the second thing, you tie that value through authenticity, okay? So really authenticity is doing what you say you do, so integrity, okay? Making sure that you don't feel like you're not being yourself and not being forced to do stuff if it doesn't feel right. That's what authenticity is in a nutshell. We can't always be right with our sense of authenticity, and there's a level of self-monitoring that we have to establish, which is knowing when to respond and how to respond in certain different scenarios and situations. But it's not compromising on your highest values, essentially. It's not being a sloth. So it has to be authentic, i.e. genuine and sincere is what I'm saying. The second thing is, do not be afraid to ask for an extension and or to offer your services elsewhere in the business. This is how we survive. This is how you build the entrepreneurial edge. This is why I love the portfolio career, because it creates opportunities. So don't be afraid to do this and talk about what you've done, what you could do, and you're willing to stay within this organization because you have an affinity towards it. The next thing is also you have to accept offers with confidence. And this comes down to talking about what you've done specifically, how you've delivered and what results have come from that, and also what you're willing to do. You need to set the terms to a degree and also be clear about the contractual stuff. Don't sign anything until there is clarity in terms of what you're doing. You're happy with the rate. You're happy with how long the extension is going to be. You're happy with the contract type, whether it's going to be inside or outside. If it's outside, okay, the arrangement is going to be different because the autonomy is much more on you. But if it's inside, okay, you're happy with the cadence that they're expecting from you as well. And finally, essentially, this relies on the performance that you've done today, likability and delivery, i.e. results. It means nothing if you haven't delivered results. So I think I've done well because I deliver results, but I would like to think I'm a likable guy too. So finally, to conclude, okay, trust your ability to provide value. You have to trust it, because if you don't trust that you can deliver, then this is where the problem lies, and people can read through your nonsense. They can read through it. The second thing is consider an extension or a rotation within a business. Okay, consider it. Don't just ask the one person, ask different people if it makes sense to ask those people, but it's the decision maker, essentially. If it's not the hiring manager, it's the head. If it's not the head, it's usually the director, because they hold the account or the budget for that specific space. So ask those individuals. And if you haven't been forming a relationship with these individuals, then start to do that. Let yourself be known, so to speak. And that's it. That's essentially what it is. Again, if you need help with anything, again, you can click on the links below to check out my life navigation system for things all around life management. Or if you're interested in anything career related, such as getting a new job or getting a new contract for the first time, you can check Secure the Job or the Independent Consultant as well. If you'd like any form of coaching or mentoring, I still offer those at a limited sort of like capacity, because my time is eaten up and there's a lot of people who are asking me. Just holler at me on LinkedIn, find out what I'm doing and stuff. Just send me a DM and maybe we'll be able to set up something there. Finally, I want to say I've got something special coming up soon. I'm not going to talk about it yet, but stay tuned. I'm definitely going to be providing a service just really centered around how you can be a more effective person in and out of the workplace as well, and set up your own sort of like business. Anyway, take care, God bless, and as always, understand, reach, and expand. Peace.